What's going on? Welcome to Riding the Peptides with your host, the Bearded Manjarbro, aka Chad Boney, or Chad Boney, aka the Bearded Manjarbro. I don't know which one I am anymore these days. But welcome to the show. I hope you guys all had an awesome Christmas so far. We're still celebrating around here. But we are just ramping up to the end of the year, New Year's, and I cannot believe that we are already at the end of 2023. Can you believe that? That is crazy. Man, it is crazy. Where did the time go this year? Just absolutely mind-blowing, the fact that it seemed like it was just a couple of months ago I was in another country, and here we are going into the new year again. Wild. Absolutely crazy. Well, today I am excited to be on the show. I'm excited to have you guys. So if you are joining in live today, make sure, as always, that you drop in the chat where you're from and how much you weigh right now, or if you don't have to say how much you weigh, but if you want to, maybe say where you were and where you're at. What is your weight loss success so far? What GLP-1 are you currently taking? But we're going to talk about GLP-1s today. We're going to talk about how you can better yourself holistically through different ways. And we have a special guest on the show today. So you make sure that you do not leave, that you stay tuned to the channel today, tuned to this show today, because you do not want to miss my guest today. Super excited. And I'm going to bring him on here in just a few minutes. So as you come in today, make sure you like this video or like the stream and share it. We want to get it out. There's a lot of people that need this information. A lot of people are struggling because they don't have the information. And that's the thing. You need information. You have not because you don't know. Or what is the saying? You don't know what you don't know, right? And if you don't know how to do something, you're never going to do it. Now you can get online, look all over the place and get answers all over the place. And when I say all over the place, I mean all over the place. And a lot of them, if not most of them, are completely not true. You don't want to just lose all this weight all at once, like a fast food crash diet of just, we're going to do this and we're just going to lose 100 pounds in a couple of months, because you definitely don't want to get that Mounjaro face. If you know anything about Mounjaro face, you'll probably go Google it now and figure that out. But you don't want your face to be all sunk in and hanging because you have lost too much weight too fast. You want to do it healthy. And I believe these GLP-1s are a great source to kind of jumpstart or kickstart yourself into a healthy lifestyle. So with that said, super excited, guys. Man, also let me know what your 2024 goal is for your health. Where are you seeing yourself in 2024 opposed to where you were in 2023? Because I know in 2023, here we are, I've gotten to a lot of the goals that I've set, but I say it all the time. You will never hit, check it out. You will 100% of the time not hit your goal when you have no goal. You have to have a goal where you want to go. And once you set the goal, your North Star, then you can take the steps one day at a time to get to that goal and reach it. You can't expect to hit that goal overnight. It takes time. Anything that's overnight is not going to work in the long run. So with that said, guys, I'm going to bring on a special guest today, all the way from Colorado, Medical Solution. And this is Dr. Dean Jones, DC. He is a doctor of chiropractic. And I'm super excited because I've kind of read his story. We've been talking for a little while, and we're going to just interview him today. He's going to share about his practice. He's going to share about his passion. Him and I feel like we have some passions that are in common. And I think that he's going to bring a plethora of great health information to my community. So if you're tuning in, make sure you stay to the end. You don't want to miss anything. Share, like. So if you're coming in, make sure you share. And without any further ado, I'm going to bring on Dr. Dean Jones. So, guys, if you have any questions for him today, make sure you drop it in the comments. Hey, buddy, how are you?
Good, man. How about yourself?
I am good. I'm good. So, we're going to talk GLP-1s today, and then we're going to talk about whatever.
Yes,
whatever you want to talk about on this channel,
buddy. I love it. I love it. No, I think the GLP space is extremely fascinating, and the answer that we needed to tackle an epidemic right now that's in front of us, and unfortunately, it's getting worse before it's getting better, and that's obesity. But that's not just obesity. Obesity being the subcategory to metabolic disease, which, quite frankly, all starts with insulin resistance. So, these medications are a powerful tool, and the way they're going to be used is unfortunately not the way that I am a fan of, but nonetheless, we can talk about that. That's what I'm excited to get into, because there's always multiple schools of thought, and however you slice it, I think these medications are probably the best class of medications that I've ever seen that have really far sweeping potential for optimizing our health.
Sure. Yeah, it's crazy to think how far technology has come in the health industry when it comes to diabetes and obesity. These pills that they've come out with in the past, you name it. It's just I feel like a lot of people, they want to get on these pills to lose all this weight, but they don't change the actual core problem. You know what I mean?
100%.
And there's a lot of, like you said, metabolic issues and stuff, you need help with that. Insulin resistance. I know for a fact, because I have insulin resistance. I can't talk. Sorry. Type 2 diabetic, A1C was 11, 300 pounds plus, down to about 195 pounds. A1C 6. But, before the GLP-1, I was on a GLP-1. I go back, Victoza, which is going to be your liraglutide. It didn't do very much for me, but made me sick all the time because, the slow emptying, the gastric emptying that it causes with these GLP-1s. But I got on Ozempic. It didn't do very much. But when I got on the tirzepatide, which is the Mounjaro, it worked wonders for me and helped me to come up with better solutions. Now, I did do keto before that. So, I am well-versed in keto way of eating and also intermittent fasting. So that helped a lot too. So I'm not going to say that Mounjaro helped me lose 100 pounds. I mean, this has been a journey for me for a while.
Yeah.
But the last 15, 20 pounds has really helped me out over, the last year and a half. And it's helped me to make the choices, to set the choices that's going to help me should I ever have to get off of GLP-1 for my diabetes, and a lot of people that are on these, the goal would be to come up with a way to change your lifestyle to be able to taper off of these. And we're going to talk about that today.
100%. So you are currently still on them because you are diabetic?
Correct.
Gotcha. Yeah. And we could definitely, start with obesity, but get into the diabetes side, because I do believe just as much in the idea that, we're handling the disease, obesity, weaning people off the meds. Same thing can happen with diabetes. Mm-hmm. Diabetes and obesity come from the same origin, which is insulin resistance. So you've made tremendous strides, it sounds like, with the weight. And then so the next thing is let's get that diabetes handled so that you can once and for all get off the meds.
Sure. Awesome. Okay. So how did you get started? How did you get started in what you're doing today?
Yeah. So, I'm the owner of Colorado Medical Solutions, and our mission statement is reducing prescriptions, preventing surgeries, restoring optimal health. That's always been my passion, but weight loss has always been the passion of passions. I hit 300 pounds when I was 16 years old. And unfortunately, this wasn't a football, gut, but still strong. I mean, I couldn't even do a push-up. This was pretty embarrassing. I look back at it, I could have a chuckle now, because I'm like, man, how the heck did I get that far? I mean, I couldn't even do a push-up. So, and along with it came a ton of just emotional unacceptance of myself. And, it just, And as much as that's not the way I would recommend anybody or a young person to handle being overweight, it certainly for me was the fuel that did drive the change. So that's really interesting, right? They say you should accept yourself, but at the same time, though, then what fuels the change? And that's a whole nother conversation. But it's always interesting because I wonder if I accepted myself and didn't let it bother me, would I have been able to lost 100 pounds when I was 16 years old? Who knows? But
Sure.
in any case, I hit 300 pounds, and I remember they call it a flashbulb memory, man. Like I weighed myself at the gym, and I still weighed myself, even though I was eating like crap and there was nothing. Like I think deep down, there was some sort of like, let's not make sure I get to that point. And then when I hit past 300 pounds, I had that like, my gosh, like I'm for whatever reason, not 250, not 280. 300 was the magic number for me where it impinged on my soul. And I thought I was going down a path that ultimately could kill me, very, very young. And so that fear within a couple hours that night turned into just like action, and I researched and I hired a personal trainer at that time. I had enough for 5 sessions, found the trainer that had lost the most weight at 24-hour fitness. This was in Southern California. And I was like, look, this is all I got. I chose you because I think this guy lost like 200 pounds and he was super fit. And I was like, you are inspiring me. Teach me what I can do, and so he taught me the old school calorie counting method. Right. And I'd love to get into that too, as well, the basis of obesity. But so I started a cardiovascular routine in the mornings. I started weightlifting in the afternoons. I started eating 4 to 6 small meals, counting my calories, counting my macros, the whole 9 yards, right? And that method works if your definition of works is weight loss.
Right.
It's not freaking sustainable. And so I lost 100 pounds, but for the next decade, this cycle ensued where I would gain 50 pounds, give or take, after summertime. And then come January, winter time, I'm thinking about, oh man, it's going to be summer, because I'm really young at that point, still very vain, right? Like gotta look good, gotta feel good. And so this cycle where I would start thinking about summertime and I would just start up again and get really serious and start the same stuff that worked. And I would do this cycle year in and year out, every single year. Very, very frustrating. But I just thought at the point, that's just what it is. Like that for me, and also being a personal trainer at that time, and then ultimately becoming a training manager, I saw the same thing with clients. When you do this method, a constant yo-yoing all the time. So I just thought that's just what it was.
Right.
For some people, right? And then intermittent fasting, right? So this is way back, 15 years ago. Intermittent fasting was just so radical compared to, the 6 meals a day, right?
Right.
I sat on that for probably about a year before I finally gave it a shot. And within that first year of just intermittent fasting, not even the prolong, which is where my magic comes from, my 50-pound fluctuation became more of a 20-pound fluctuation with no other changes other than just intermittent fasting. Right. And then I'm like, let's keep pushing it, baby. And then I jumped on a prolonged fasting. And then I just kept doing the longer fast, 24, 36, 48 hours, every other week, every week. And that was where I hit the most, the sweet spot was about a 48-hour fast every single week. And the weight was just flying off my body with the least amount of effort that I've ever had. Having gone through this cycle so many times, I like to describe to people, we only have, imagine you have 100 marbles to play with in terms of your attention every single day. You got to allocate those marbles, right? And 80% of it goes to just the survival stuff. You got 20% to allocate towards whatever project you're trying to do. And weight loss usually is going to be an all-encompassing project, especially a method like that involves all those different factors. And so I noticed when I was doing that much fasting, it was like I didn't even have to try. I didn't have to exercise that much. I didn't have to do cardio. I could get away with a less disciplined diet, not complete crap, but much less disciplined, and focus on my life. And 20 marbles that I would need, arbitrarily speaking, was like 2 now. And I just got lean, very lean. And so that blew me away. So I fast forward, I become a doctor of chiropractic. I'm specializing in functional medicine, which is focusing on helping patients outside of just the musculoskeletal system, just overall optimal health and that's kind of where my company's mission statement of reducing prescriptions, preventing surgeries, that's what functional doctors do. And so But what was unique about me is I incorporated a ton of fasting with my patients, more than other functional doctors that I would collaborate with would do. Whether it was weight loss goals or not, it didn't matter. I was really emphatic about what I was seeing clinically, because I was doing comprehensive blood analysis, stool analysis, and even with my patients, outside of weight losses, I'll bring it back. I noticed just they would get healthier with much less effort compared to the ones that were not doing as much fasting. So now I'm starting to see, okay, there's something really, really magical going on. This is not just a weight loss tool, because even the patients, I had patients that were at healthy weights doing aggressive fasting like this, that wanted to benefit from it from a health perspective, to reduce inflammation via cellular autophagy, to improve metabolic health. I just made them eat more when they weren't fasting so they wouldn't lose too much weight. But the benefits were just confirmed clinically. And so I ended up developing what I call the flow protocol, which is, I love the name, by the way. Like, I remember sitting down, coming up with that name, FLOA, fasting like our ancestors. It's like a bit of science meeting ancestral wisdom, but the gist of it is getting our patients into a weekly aggressive fast. This is the world's most aggressive prolonged fasting. You ask most of the fasting experts, and they'll tell you, if we're talking about a 48 hour fast, or 36, or anything more than that, do that once a month, right? Which is still pretty good, right? Which is still pretty aggressive. No one's telling people to do this every single week. And so, but I have enough confidence, having done what I've done for so many years with so many patients, to come up with that protocol. But as you can imagine, for most people, getting into an aggressive fasting regimen without GLPs, right? So I didn't get into GLPs until probably with semaglutide, right? So 2018, 2019. And I don't know, maybe a third of the patients to a half that would try it could actually stick to it and get through that initial barrier to where they can really adopt that lifestyle. Because I'm aiding them with so many supplements and strategic lifestyle interventions that really help them adapt to it. But it was hard. And now we have GLP-1 starting semaglutide and then tirzepatide. Oh my gosh, that's where it became a game changer and really landed into this protocol where we use a GLP-1. Now my favorite is tirzepatide, Mounjaro, and we like to combine it with AOD 9604, which is a powerful fat mobilizing peptide as well. And the combination of both, I kid you not, I could take 10 obese patients. We're talking obese, and I'll get 9 of them into a 48-hour fast relatively easy. I mean, it's unheard of, and
yeah.
And then so that's, I don't want to get too tangent, but that's basically how I got here, and we'll definitely get into the protocol more.
Sure.
But yeah, man, I mean, I just kind of fell into it. It was sort of one event after another. And I feel like I really cracked the code in terms of what needs to be done for not just weight loss, but doing it in a format that then allows them to wean off. That's the key. There's a difference between losing weight and then losing weight while addressing the underlying mechanisms of obesity, which is what my protocol does.
Yeah, that's good. I was talking to a buddy I had on this channel on the show. It had to been like maybe a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, maybe. And he was talking about how he'd been a diabetic for like 25 years. And this is the same thing we see all the time. He would get on a medication. The medication would stop working. Doctor would get him on another medication. It would stop working eventually. And it just went on and on and on and on and on. But the problem of it is it never fixed the core issue. It's treating it as like a Band-Aid, and what you're saying, from what I gather from what you're saying, is yes, we're going to use the tirzepatide. We're going to use the extra peptide. We're going to help just jumpstart you to where you need to be at and work into a lifestyle change where you can intermittent fast and get that insulin sensitivity back, and then wean off of the GLP-1. Is that correct?
In a nutshell, that is it. The 3 components are that must be addressed to, I would say, to help most people be efficient. Cortisol comes into play too, but kind of going down the totem pole, insulin resistance is number 1, inflammation is number 2, fat adaptation, or AKA metabolic flexibility, is number 3. And we can get into more nuanced stuff like cortisol and things like that. But ultimately, that's the totem pole. That's the hierarchy that I focus on. And so for those 3, that'll take care of most people, even some very obese levels. It's just amazing, man. It's amazing to be able to provide this format and what I've been seeing. Absolutely love what I do, man.
That's awesome, man. There's that inflammation is a big deal too. You know, most people don't realize that they're dealing with inflammation, you know, and that's why we're here to talk about it, because, you know, as I said in the beginning of this show, you don't know what you don't know, you know, and so,
yeah,
you know,
inflammation, base of every disease. And in terms of fat loss, it does basically, to keep it simple, the 2 things that insulin does that we know is, in the presence of elevated insulin levels, you're not gonna be able to break down fat, and you're in more of a storage mode, regardless of calories, which is a very interesting topic because of the people that think it's all about calories. Inflammation kind of does the same thing in a different pathways. Chronic inflammation will also inhibit and make it more difficult for your body to mobilize fat. And it does put you in more of an easier storage mode. But again, that hierarchy, I'll focus on insulin resistance first if I can only focus on one, because that definitely is the starting point in my totem pole of helping people get healthy.
Awesome, man. Well, I know that every time I intermittent fast, I feel so much better. And, you know, it seems like my joints feel better. I also know that when I used to work out as much as, I don't really work out as much as I used to because of time. And I know that's a horrible, horrible excuse. Just around Christmas time, I haven't had a whole lot of time to do it. But it seemed like, here's what's crazy. You know, there was a time where they say you need to load up on carbs, and there's carb loading and all this stuff. And I know we're getting more into the bodybuilding, lifting weight stuff, but it seemed like the days when I went without carbs fasting, I was just as strong, if not stronger. And my mind was just, my cognitive thinking was incredible. And I, you know, I don't know if, I'm sure you've read the book by Jason Fung, The Obesity Code and Diabetes Code. I mean, for what you do, I know you have, but it's interesting to think how much cognitive function is inhibited from carbs, you know?
Oh yeah.
And the difference it makes when you cut those carbs out.
I mean, ketone bodies are, this is the whole clean source of fuel. And also too, like you gotta take it back ancestrally for a lot of this stuff, because we're not going to be able to back everything up off of literature. We don't have massive billion-dollar industries that benefit from getting people to fast. Unfortunately, we don't, you know, and so we got to use some wisdom. We got to use some anecdotal observation, some clinical observation, and whatever research we can musk up, and in order to be able to draw these conclusions. But yeah, I mean, with ketone bodies and ancestrally speaking, it makes sense that during times of famine, that your body would start producing these ketone bodies, and you would get this heightened sense of awareness, which is what you would need to successfully secure your next hunt. It wouldn't make sense if the natural reaction was, I haven't eaten for a day, and so I'm going to start to feel like crap, which is what you would expect from an organism that really does have to constantly eat, that doesn't have the systems that the human body does. But I love telling people this, and I tell them at the beginning of every single coaching call, because I just like a very at the beginning of my first coaching call with every new patient, I go, look, human beings have been around for about earliest ancestors, 3 million years. We didn't have the steady states of food until about 10,000 compared to 3 million. Okay. And even for the last 10,000 years, the majority of that was clean, healthy food, you know? So, but that goes down another rabbit hole. But taking it back to, the majority of 3 million years, that was a period of, I don't know when I'm going to secure my next meal. Okay. So every human being alive today is the result that contains the genetic blueprint of whatever humans were able to survive and develop and evolve the best mechanisms in their body to be able to consume large amounts of food, store it as energy that they can then access later to keep them alive so that they can secure the next meal. That literally is what evolution has brought to us now. And so we're the result of the best constant evolution of that happening for the past 3 million years. So to think that we need to be eating 4 to 5 to 6 meals a day literally goes against that. It just doesn't make any sense to me at all. But again, we take a step back and go, well, this literature, this piece of article shows that intermittent fasting doesn't show any more benefit than calorie restriction. And again, you have to be able to take a step back, look at the bias that it does exist inside the literature, use it for what it is and use it for where it is and where it's taken us, but take a step back and use some wisdom, use some clinical observation, because I've done both, not just on myself, but on patients, both clinically and as a personal trainer when I was managing my trainers and I had 20, 30 different trainers and that's all we did. You know, at that time, we weren't fasting with our clients. It was all that old school method. And, you know, the majority of them would cycle, you know, great for personal training business, right? Because they're going to come back.
Sure.
But horrible for them, you know?
Right. So true, you know, and a lot of people don't really think about going back to what you were saying with the ancestors, you know, when the men would wake up, they didn't have breakfast just sitting there. They had to go out there and find their game and provide for their family. And that's how they did it. And sometimes it was hours before they found it, you know, and we wake up and, hey, we've got cereal or we've got waffles or you know, it's just crazy to think how far we've come. And yeah, there's so many pockets involved when it comes to health. You know, the American Diabetes Association tells you have to have this chart, you know, the top is like grains, you know, we're going to load you up on carbs and we're going to have this and this and this, but yet they're really failing us because when you load up on all this high starch carb stuff, it's just compacting the whole issue of insulin, you know, resistance, you know? So I completely agree with what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you remember the whole story of what happened in 1977, what led to the food pyramid, which is, you know, 60% grains?
Remind me again. I don't know. I'm sure I read about it before.
For sure. I've told the story so many times, right? And it's important. It's an important piece in really understanding this whole idea of the hormonal basis of obesity. But you know, so prior, and by the way, prior to the 50s, for about 100 years, give or take, the standard of what we did for obese and diabetic patients was we put them on a low carb diet. We did that for about 100 years. We knew that. Okay. Then about in the 50s, we noticed an increase, a pretty big increase in death to heart attacks. Okay. Big deal. We got to figure this out, right? So researchers are trying to figure it out. And this idea, right, of maybe it's linked to fat, maybe it's excess fat consumption, maybe it's excess cholesterol. Okay. So from 50s to 70s ensues this rapid debate between, yes, it's the fat. That's the reason why we're having heart disease versus no, it's not. Little did we know at that time that we had made big advancements in antibiotics and vaccine medicine and just public health measures. And so deaths to things like TB, infections, just we had a big decline in deaths from infections because our advancements in medicine. And so naturally, what's the next thing to kill us? It was heart disease, right? And so it makes sense why that confusion started. And unfortunately, we couldn't draw that conclusion. And now we get into the controversy of why we didn't draw that confusion or why we didn't draw that conclusion. Did they want us to? But anyways, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. So finally, in 1977, the government steps in. And look, they this is the first time, by the way, in history where Big Brother steps in and makes a decision for our health. So it's a pretty big point in history because they shouldn't be doing that, number one. And it wasn't like the world's best health experts. It was the government. And there was no advancements in literature to say, hey, based off this new understanding, this is why they just stepped in, debated, and made a decision in 1977. Hey, that is the culprit. And so from there, they produced a massive campaign across the country to reduce fat intake. Well, when you reduce fat intake, that only leaves you with protein and carbs, and you can only eat so much meat, right? So carbohydrate intake is increase is the result of that. And bam, presto, you have a food pyramid where healthy consists of 60 or 70% of your macronutrients, your calories coming from carbohydrates. Yep. And if you look at obesity and then diabetes 10 years later, literally there was an explosion in the rate of obesity and diabetes that started from that same year. So you wonder where this is all coming from. You can literally point to the story, to the change in the trends, and that's where it happened. That's where it started from. So it definitely just really confirms, and it's a good observation to see, to parallel with all the other pieces that point to, hey, it's not calories that's driving this issue. It's the hormones and what is influencing the hormones, what we eat and how we live our life.
That's so good. So basically, in a nutshell, we can't trust our government.
I mean,
just kidding.
No, I mean, we can't. But I mean, look, I don't know. Like I said, I hate going down that rabbit hole.
Sure.
I think that there are people doing the best that they can, and unfortunately, probably higher powers above, and the influence and the money. Yeah. Always follow the money, man. Always follow the money when you're looking at something and drawing conclusions. I mean, that's just
so true.
Yeah.
So that's man, that's really good. That's a lot of good information. Sorry, I'm having some issues with my mic here.
Oh, you're good.
Sorry, guys. All right, that's probably better. It just seemed like it was echoing too loud, so I was trying to get it tuned in here. So, man, such good information. I'm so happy to have you on the show today. So a lot of people don't realize a lot of the things that we've been fed all of our lives is not true when it comes to being healthy. They go, like you said, oh, we wouldn't need to get the fat-free stuff. Well, I heard a thing where, when they started cutting out like fats from our diets, people started getting on, started having like Parkinson's disease and all this type of stuff. What do you say about that?
Yeah, well, there are a lot of people, and we have to be careful. There are some people saying Alzheimer's and neurodegeneration is type 3 diabetes. It's not yet, but the idea here is that some people are recognizing it, saying that this is what we should call type 3 diabetes. Because the neurodegenerative changes are resulting from the death of the tissue and the tissue's dying from late stage inabilities to receive the energy that it needs to survive, which is resulting from insulin resistance. So absolutely, when you make this change, you reduce fat, like we said, which inevitably causes an increase of carbohydrates, whether you realize it or intended for that to happen. That is going to happen because you're not going to replace all the calories of fat with protein. That's really hard to do.
Right.
And so you now are eating more carbohydrates. And of course, with more carbohydrates, that leads to insulin resistance. And so I 100% believe that is the case, which is why, by the way, GLPs right now are being studied for medications to be used in Alzheimer's and neurodegenerative diseases. I do think that we're going to see that happen probably the next 3 to 5 to 8 years. These GLPs they're going to, more and more diseases are going to be treated with these GLPs. And I'm embracing it, I'm embracing it and educating that being on the medication for the rest of your life, I have to make this clear to people because I get so much flack sometimes, understandably so, where somebody gets offended because they're on the medication, they're choosing to do it for the rest of their life. And I love and I appreciate everybody for even having the courage to start the medication and making those initial changes. No, I don't want to offend anybody, and I don't intend to. And kudos to you for taking those first steps. And for some people, maybe staying on the medications is the best course for them. I also want to make that clear too as well. But it's really easy to slip into that mode where this is so much of a better state of health that I've ever obtained before that I'm just going to settle for this. And also that's perpetuated by the lack of understanding of what would it actually look like? What would I need to do to actually address those mechanisms from a lifestyle perspective the mechanisms being insulin resistance, inflammation, and metabolic flexibility, what could I actually do now that I got the food chatter decreased, now that my inflammation is, but I'm feeling better? What are the next steps? That doesn't exist out there right now. That's my program. That's why I'm on such a mission right now, because it's actually not that hard. But for a lot of people, there's this concept that when you have an idea, it's a stable idea, a stable datum, and this other idea comes and it invalidates this idea that you believe to be true. The natural response is to feel offended and critical, because for you to not be critical, you have to be able to handle the idea that maybe this idea that I'm operating my entire life off of might not be true, right? And that is very difficult. So your natural mechanism is to defend that idea, right? I need to be on medication. You don't, that's wrong. But I'm here to say that that's not actually true. And you need to, it's step by step. So you took the first step, you handled the disease, you are eating better, you're at a better weight, your blood sugar's lower. Now let's go on to the next step. Okay. And for me, my program is from the beginning, we're doing those things right off the get-go. So it doesn't have to be so much of a transition. And it's actually easier to get somebody off the meds if from the beginning we started with the intense lifestyle. But we get a lot of people that reach out to us as well, because they never intended to be on the medications for their entire life.
Mm-hmm.
And they just thought, kind of like your verbiage, I'm just going to jumpstart. But you got to be careful with just saying, I'm just going to jumpstart, because the literature is very clear. There was a randomized control study that looked at semaglutide with lifestyle intervention. When people stopped, 70% of patients within a single year regained all their weight and lost all their cardiometabolic benefits within a single year, 70%. And I promise you, within 2 to 3 to 5 years, probably upwards of 95% of people are going to be in that same boat. So this isn't a result of GLPs, okay? Maintaining weight loss is already very difficult. There's literature that shows just all cases of weight loss, not even isolating semaglutide or tirzepatide, but just losing weight in general. Within a couple of years, 80% of patients start to regain 50, 60, 70% of their weight back. We know that from the literature. This is why, by the way, Biggest Loser, you never see a reunion. Because unfortunately, that method, that aggressive calorie burning, which is the same thing as calorie restriction, mm-hmm. which is what's happening to the majority of people using GLPs, it doesn't work long-term, okay? So we have to take a step back and address the hormonal basis in order to be successful long-term. And that can happen. And if you're watching this and you're in that boat right now where you're actively losing this, or maybe you've already lost it and you're telling yourself, I'm going to be on this medication for the rest of my life. Hopefully you take no offense to what I'm saying, but I want you to let that to start sinking in, especially when you start looking at some things. And I'll say this, number one, what's going to happen? So we're not even going to talk about the health yet. That's the next thing. But just from a financial perspective, right? The only reason people can get this at an affordable option from a compounding pharmacy is because we have a national shortage. What's going to happen when that national shortage is over? You can't there goes your compounding pharmacy. No more semaglutide, no more tirzepatide. You can only get the pharmaceutical versions, which are upwards of $1,000 to $1,500 per month. Mm-hmm. Nobody's thinking about that right now. Nobody's thinking. They're like, 200 a month, 300 a month. Oh, that's a big stretch, but I'll do it. I'll make that work. I'll budget that because it's my health. I have to. Nobody is thinking what's going to happen when the national shortage ends.
Right.
What happens? It's a national shortage. It's no longer going to be a shortage. Pharmaceutical companies are doing everything they can because they don't like it that the compounding pharmacies versions are even available to begin with. It hurts their bottom line.
Yeah.
And so you got that you need to start confronting right now. And then the other part of it is the potential health ramifications. Like, I'm a fan of this medication. I think it's relatively safe, but the phrase, the choice of word where it was relative, right? We don't have long-term safety studies yet on semaglutide, on tirzepatide. And people get that confused because they go, well, the GLPs have been around for 20 years. The short-acting daily injection versions are the same class but they're a different medication. Just sit down with a clinical pharmacist or sit down with any pharmacist, and they will tell you that the molecular structure, even though it's the same class, can be very, very different. And so what's going to end up happening is we can utilize the research that we have off of those short acting versions. And that'll probably speed up the process of us being able to do the long-term research on semaglutide, on tirzepatide, on these longer acting versions, and draw stronger conclusions that it is safe. And I hope we find out. I want it to be very, very safe. I've just never seen a medication that's ever been quote unquote safe. Like, it's a bit of an oxymoron if you ask me, because all medications are toxic to the body to a certain extent. And so this is why that's my second big reason, in addition to the financials, as to going back to, let's say you're in that boat, you're using the medications, or you're thinking about starting. Those are the things that you need to confront in order to get rid of that automatic defense of why you want to be on them, and that rationalization and that justification, and push that to the side and go, I have to push that to the side because of those two issues. Let that resonate. Let that sit with you for a while. And then tell me if you're still thinking you want to be on the medication for the rest of your life, because logically that would be a very non-survival decision unless you're rich and unless you just don't give an F about the potential health ramifications. Then okay, fine. But the majority of us don't have a budget that can easily account for $1,000 to $1,500 a month. It's not in the budget for most of us.
That's so good, man. I don't think a lot of people really are thinking about, we are in a shortage, Now, a lot of people, obviously, they're approved for the Mounjaro and stuff like that. And yeah, they have the just, vouchers and stuff, but still, what happens with the people that are using it off label, that don't have insurance or don't have that coupon, or when it does come to the point where it dries up and you can't buy the tirzepatide compound or the semaglutide compound.
Yeah, 100% with the insurance coverage, right? So it's approved for obesity. Well,
right.
If it's working, you're not going to stay obese.
Right.
They're not going to keep prescribing it if the obesity disease isn't getting better, right?
Sure.
They don't cover it for maintenance. And it's a different conversation if they do at some point.
That's a big thing I think a lot of people aren't thinking about either.
No, they're not.
They're thinking maintenance. Oh, I'm getting on this prescription, I'm going to be able to have it forever.
No, they're not. It's approved for the disease obesity. It's not approved for the maintenance of staying away from obesity. It's not. I don't think it ever will be. Maybe it will, and that's a different conversation.
Sure.
Then we can roll out the cost and just say, hey, well, now we got to confront just the potential health ramifications. And speaking of that, how many medications? Just look at history. Fully FDA approved medications that we find out 5-10 years later. Holy crap! My bad. Killed a couple million people, and we got to remove them off the market. Again, do I think that's going to happen with GLPs? Hopefully not, but I don't have a crystal ball. I'd be in a much different place if I did. And these are the things that just always drive me back personally to, well, let's just address those with lifestyle. Let's just address those underlying issues so we don't have to have this debate. We don't have to have these concerns. And let's just see if we can get off of it. Let's be proactive.
Yeah. That's good. So good. It's always better to do it natural if you can, for sure. Because our bodies are very intelligent and smart, and just got to know how to do it. A lot of people just are uneducated as far as how do you do it. And that's where your program comes in, where you can actually show them and coach them and help them. Also, with that said, you have just recently released a book. We're going to talk about that. Do you want to talk a little bit about your book that you just released not too long ago?
Yeah. Super excited about that. I've definitely been a tremendous amount of effort to write that. So Fast, Feast, and Flourish, the comprehensive guide towards utilizing GLP medications and peptides in a strategic format to be able to wean off the meds and maintain your weight. So this is obviously, if you've been listening thus far, what I'm all about and what I'm very passionate about. So the book is just a comprehensive dive into everything that you need to do. So theoretically, you can read the book and take care of yourself. Obviously, like anything, right? That's the lowest level of support that I can offer anybody is read my book and follow the protocol. It's laid out in there exactly what you need to do. It's a lot of lifestyle. We talk about everything, you know, the medications, the peptides, the supplements. And there's a protocol in there right in the beginning. If you just want to get straight to the protocol, it's all laid out there so that you can start right away and then continue reading. And then understand. And, you know, I do a really good summary of what Dr. Fung does for the obesity code, but I will never try to compete with that. There's no point. He did such a beautiful job of and you know, he's probably citates over 100 sources of literature. Yeah, they're not double-blind randomized control studies. They're not that, because those don't exist. So what did he do? He looked for every little piece of small evidence, the mechanisms, so that you can just, if you understand the mechanisms and how the body works, you can look at those mechanisms, but then backed it up with whatever literature that we do have so that it tells the story and it makes sense. But so I summarize that in the book. But I still tell people to go get that book if you want a deeper dive and really understand the science. Like I said, the supplements, the medications, and everything that you need to do to get started. From there, I also launched because obviously, you know, like you said, I have my clinic, so we offer full-on programs for people getting the medications, or they already have the medications. We can full-on coach them, and we guarantee results and all that. But for a lot of people, financially, that's just not an option. They can literally just get what's covered by insurance, and that's it. So because of that, I just launched my online course and sort of group coaching format that I'm super excited. It's freaking $10 a month, which I know I will increase that price eventually, but I'm just really excited to get that going. And probably when I hit 500 to 1,000 members, then I'll start increasing the price. But for $10 a month, you get access to an online course, which is essentially now video by video, module by module. So now it's more supportive than what the book does. And in addition to joining the private Facebook group, we do weekly coaching where you can ask questions, you can be involved, and you can be part of that community. So what I intend for that, and really my vision for that, was for the people that really financially are going with whatever insurance can cover, and that's it. I think we can budget $10 a month. Even if I bumped it up to 20, 30, 40, I do really feel like the value is very high for that. And I'm really excited for that. And of course you can go to the upper level coaching, which is more personalized and tailored. But with that program, there's no excuses. You have a format to follow, and now you have the coaching and support so that you can beat this disease, because obesity is a disease. Diabetes is a disease. And by the way, this relates to something that I also get asked all the time. Again, it comes from that defense mechanism. People get angry when I tell them about weaning off the meds, right? And their response is, I love it, right? I'll hear some version of this all the time. You wouldn't take somebody off of a blood pressure medication just because their blood pressure became stable after starting the medication, would you? So why on earth would you tell people to stop their obesity medication? And I go, that's a great question. I'll answer that in two different ways. I'll answer it with the justification, but let me answer it with a question. Why would you continue to take the blood pressure medication if you were able to stabilize your blood pressure while not being on the medication to begin with through lifestyle intervention? And there's no answer to that, right? So medication, I embrace science, right? Science meets ancestral wisdom. Medication has saved millions and millions upon millions of lives, and it will continue to do so. But it's just the way that it's used so quickly and only used, that's the problem. And so that's where I take it back and go, okay, let's just embrace it and utilize it for what we can, but let's take it back to ancestral wisdom and lifestyle so that we can then ultimately get off of it. And that's what these different programs that I offer are there to help people accomplish. Because I mean it when I say I'm on a mission to help 1 million people battle obesity without lifelong dependence on medications.
Awesome. Sweet. So how can somebody find that book that you've just come out with? And you're coming out with another book, right?
No, not yet. Not yet. In the future, I definitely would love to target diabetes. Our clinic does a really cool treatment for addressing diabetes that's actually covered by insurance. So I'm very, very passionate about diabetes as well. And so that's probably in the pipeline for another year or two. So I won't even talk about that, but you can get it on Amazon. What I'm going to do for your listeners too, as well, is I'll give you a link that you can provide to them. They can get a summarized, smaller e-copy completely free. And if they want to purchase it, it'll be like a link tree, right? So they can purchase the full version directly. It's like $9 for the Kindle version and 15 or 16 for the book copy. But you can get that on Amazon, or you can wait to probably a couple weeks down the road. I'll do another Amazon giveaway deal where you have a day to purchase it for free. So Amazon allows you to do those a couple days every quarter. So I'll give you a link where you can give to your listeners, and they can access all that, including if they are ready to take the plunge, if they want to join the course, or maybe they're ready for some live coaching where we guarantee results. All of that will be available in a nice link tree that you can provide to your listeners.
Absolutely. Super excited to offer that to my listeners today. So you need to take advantage of those resources, because I'm telling you, Dr. Jones has a lot of information. He's done a lot of studies, and obviously I talk about this a lot. A lot of people, doctor, can talk about things all day long, but they have no results, and it means a little bit more when you have the results to prove it, 100%. That it is legit what you're saying. And it is legit what you're saying. I agree. I already know what you're saying is completely correct. I mean, I've been, into intermittent fasting since probably 2016, 2017. So, I mean, it's been around longer than that, obviously, all the way to our ancestor days. But I think it's my dad. Okay. So my dad has heart failure. He just had a pacemaker put in not too long ago, a defibrillator, but he got up to like 260, 270, and he's been intermittent fasting, which shocked the heck out of me, because, he's 67 and never would have ever thought I'd ever hear him ever say, I've been intermittent fasting, but the fact that he's been intermittent fasting, he's lost about 40 pounds. Wow. And he just looks good, and he feels good. So it is legit. That intermittent fasting is a huge game changer when it comes to building that insulin resistance back, as far as being more sensitive to the insulin that your body puts out and produces. And just overall, not even just that, but just like we talked earlier about the cognitive functioning, several things, inflammation, several things in your body that actually will start changing for the better when you start reducing these carbs, especially over longer periods of time. So
100%. Awesome. It's quite the heated topic. I'm definitely probably within the next couple of weeks or so, I'm going to release a series on YouTube, just really focusing on episode after episode about the debate. The debate is it about calories, right? Because we could talk forever about that, but just kind of briefly touching through it, the proponent of the calorie counting school is that all the benefits that are coming from fasting are just because of the caloric restriction that comes along with it. And I think where they get lost, and this will be like a teaser to those series, I think where they get lost is, yes, it's a true statement. You have to be in a caloric surplus to gain weight. Yes, that's true. You have to be in a caloric deficit to lose weight. That is true. And so if you take that and not really look at additional mechanisms, you will quickly conclude, well, then it doesn't matter about anything else, because that's the end all be all. How could anything else matter, right? Well, you understand the mechanisms, and you understand physiology, and you look at hormones, and you dive into specifically hormones that influence whether you are in a caloric surplus or deficit. And that's the big thing right there. And that's where the confusion lies. Look, and anybody can consciously choose, not anybody, I would say most people can take a moment, go back to my analogy with 100 marbles, exhaust most of them, 90% of those marbles, and say, I'm going to stuff my face and make myself gain weight and put myself in a surplus. I could do that consciously with the use of my marbles, right? My attention units. I could also do the opposite and starve myself and eat as little as possible or fast for a week and put myself in a deficit. and lose a bunch of weight, right? Those are true statements. And that also, I think, validates that calorie perspective. But let's take a step back and look at reality for a second, right? We have 100 marbles, attention units that we have to operate off of, and we have to choose to allocate. And usually, by the way, we're not choosing; those marbles are allocating themselves. But 20% of them are for choice, right? How often are we getting more than 20% of our marbles to allocate towards something like weight loss, like dieting, like counting calories, counting macros? And so inevitably, and this is one of the reasons why calorie counting fails, is because we get slipped back into the stressors of life. And now what's dictating how much we eat and how much we don't eat is not our conscious decision, right? What is the thing in human physiology that dictates how hungry we are? It's mostly hormones. You can argue there's some other drivers and contributors, but it's mostly hormones. Hormones are going to influence and control how hungry you are or not. And guess what? Your metabolism, right? The total amount of calories you burn at rest, no matter how much you exercise or not exercise, 60 to 80% of the calories you burn every day comes from the basal portion of your metabolism. And then you can influence it about 20 to 40% more with that conscious effort to exercise a lot. Okay. So hormones control what that basal part of your metabolism is doing, right? So again, I think that's, like I said, I can go on and on about that. And I'm looking forward to creating these episodes because I love that debate because I can see where the confusion comes from. But that's kind of like a brief summary of why I think it's so controversial, why I come across these calorie counting zealots who are offended and think that doctors, and it's always trainers too. That's what cracks me up. It's usually trainers and non-healthcare professionals that don't work with patients, not all the time, but I've just a silly observation or a funny observation is I encounter non-healthcare professionals that are calling out doctors and physicians who work with patients in a clinical setting, analyzing blood work and doing everything they do and saying they're neurotic and they're idiotic, defending this calorie counting perspective. It just cracks me up. And I can see where their confusion comes from because they don't have the clinical understanding of how the body works. And so they can't even begin to comprehend how the hormones could influence it and create that surplus or deficit in calories.
That's good, man. That's a lot to take in, buddy. That's good. That's why I wanted you on the show, because I think that it helps kind of open up, the perspective of what the health, what your body's really doing, with these drugs and without the drugs, and what you can do taking these drugs and getting off of these drugs if you have the right information, if you can use this. As you said, a lot of people get off of them and gain a lot of weight because they haven't put protocols, if you will, into place. And that's the main thing, It's crazy to think how many people, though, are just like, I'm just going to take this drug and I'm just going to continue to do what I'm doing. I'm going to continue to eat what I'm doing. And they don't really look in the near future or the long term and see what's coming down the pipe,
And what's perpetuating that is the clinics that are popping up, the med spas, and everybody's trying to make a quick buck. And so more and more clinics are providing the compounding pharmacy to patients with, I can't tell you how many patients I tell you. So first of all, there's the whole getting them online from a research company, which is just blows my mind how that can happen, but that does. And people are going online to research companies and purchasing these peptides with no clinical support whatsoever, no blood work's being done, and taking something that straight up can kill you. If you take too much of it, or if you already have pancreatitis and you don't even realize it, that's wild on of its own. But not even going that route, the med spas, so it's a legit prescription and there's supposed to be oversight. Some physician is taking responsibility for those prescriptions, legally speaking, but the patients tell me I had no guidance or no direction. They just sent me the prescription and that was it. And so there's so much of that going on too as well. No wonder these people are just lost right now. Yes, there's some of that ignorance behind the big picture, but there's also this situation where these clinics are taking advantage of these people and just prescribing them willy-nilly because I'll tell you, patients will say something like, I told the clinic that I was going to wean off the medications, and they didn't make it sound like that was a difficult thing. They didn't tell me necessarily it was outright easy, but I told the clinic my goal is to utilize this medication to jumpstart my program and wean off. And they said, sure, great, no problem. Here you go. And that is malpractice, because the literature is very clear that being able to do it just like that is very improbable. So it is malpractice, in my opinion, for those doctors and those clinics to be obviously not all of them are doing that, but I hear that a lot. And if they were practicing ethically, they wouldn't be waiting for the patient to ask that question. They would be saying, hey, what is your intended usage of this medication? Okay. You're not obese. All right. So you're using it to help you with your weight loss. And that's a whole nother topic of whether it should just be for obese or not. I'm in favor that pre-obese and overweight people should have access to this too. But that's a whole nother conversation, maybe for another episode. But it should be up to the doctors to ask that question. Hey, what is your intended goal for this? Because I think if they did, they'd be hearing a lot of, well, I want to use it to wean off. And if they had any morality behind what they were doing, they'd say, hey, by the way, that's going to be really challenging to do based off the literature. But they'd have less business if they did that. So it's again, you always follow the money to understand what's going on. And it's a shame, but this is why this is why I'm doing what I'm doing right now, and why I'm so passionate. And I think the online course is a really big movement in the right direction to be able to help people in that situation from a economical, perspective.
Sorry about that. Oh. I know that we're getting toward the end of the show here, so I want to ask a couple questions real quick.
Yeah.
So if one of my audiences, or one of the people in my audience wants to look into starting your program, obviously we have the link. We're going to do the link tree and stuff for the online coaching and stuff. But if they actually wanted to come to your clinic and they wanted to, now you have different clinics also, not just in Colorado as well, right?
So we have a physical location in Denver, and then Colorado Springs, and then we do telemed for the rest of the country. Okay. So we are able to take telemed for all of US. And then for global, for outside of US, I do my coaching for people because they can get their hands on the medication. So we treat them the same way. They can get their hands on the peptides, or there's the whole category of people who are choosing to do this without the medications, without the peptides. Maybe they're not obese. They're in that pre-obese category, or 5, 10, 15 pounds. Those are the category of people that, in my opinion, should be trying to do this without the meds. But I don't invalidate people for wanting to use the meds, because they come from their background and their struggles. And, that it's not, I think, fair for me to say you have to try. But I think that there's a line, and we have to try to find a balance. But we provide programs for people in either scenario. I want to do it with the meds. I want to do it without the meds. And if you're in US, we can prescribe it for you. You can come to us if you already have it. And then internationally speaking, we can't prescribe to you. And so you have that's kind of how that works. So we provide all those options. And so in that link that I gave you, they can actually fill out a form and schedule a consultation after they fill out the information directly from that link. But I'll just drop the phone number just in case. 720-465-1200. So 720-465-1200. They can literally call or text that phone number, mention that they came from you, because I'm going to give your listeners 10% off for the coaching programs, for my direct coaching programs. And then the online course is the online course, the $10 a month deal. But those are the options that they have.
Awesome. Let me see here. I'm going to put that information here real quick. Now, I do have, if you see your email address there, let's see here. There we go. We do have your email address there where you can be contacted. I'm also going to, in fact, I'll just drop it in the description, your phone number to call. And now, last question from me, and then I'll let you share with the audience anything that any last thing you want to say. But do you offer payment plans? Like say somebody doesn't have, they're in a bad situation, bad spot, but they do want to focus on their health. How does that look?
Yeah. So we do offer payment plans. We have everything from a financing company to in-house payment plan options. So we do our best to work with patients within the capacity of what we have to do to survive as a business, of course. But yes, we do offer various options for that as well.
Awesome. All right. Well, is there anything else, doctor, that you want to share with the audience that you probably didn't discuss today, or some advice last second?
Yeah, no, for
The new
sure.
year.
I think with what, New Year's in 2 days, man, that's crazy.
It is crazy.
Enjoy the New Year's. That probably means you're going to be feasting. And so unfortunately, along with feasting, comes a lot of guilt for a lot of people because they know they shouldn't. And so I like to start there with my patients. And so for everybody listening, there is a thing called fasting. And if you notice, after a day of feasting, if you pay attention to your hunger levels the next morning, you will notice 95% of people that you have less hunger. That is literally your body trying to balance off by suppressing its appetite because it detected a higher amount of calories in the prior period of time. Fast, feast, and flourish. So let your body tell you what it's trying to do. And if you did, whether by choice because you deserved it, or, again, depending on where you're at, oh man, I ate too much, then freaking fast the next day, fast the day before, lift weights the day of. You can do so much damage control. And I think just starting there, picking up some tips and doing some damage control from where you're at. And then at the same time, taking a step back and really asking yourself the driving reason as to why you're trying to make this change. It's been a struggle for most people with this battle of their weight, whether it is obesity or whether it's 15, 20 pounds. Truthfully, and I've given you the answer. Everything that you've been told or led to believe is wrong. It's not about the calories. You are choosing to utilize a very ineffective method, and that is why you struggled. So embrace this idea that I'm teaching you and realize that you're not a failure. You've been given some crappy information, and it's made it that much harder for you to be successful, which is why you haven't. And so let's flip the script here and embrace the hormonal basis of obesity and focus on that. Stress less about the calories and see what that does for you. And then let me know in 10, 15, 20 days if you're not ready to use my program. If that didn't already make an easier change, if you didn't already start to notice that, wow, I'm dropping weight and it's easier, I'm not having to think about it as much, and tell me what you think. And then obviously from there, we can get you into some programs if you're interested, or if you just want to keep, like, I offer a free Facebook group too as well for people. So if you just are not at a point where spending money is any option for you, I have a free Facebook community. I'll put that in the link tree too as well. And all my coaching sessions that I do across that are more of the, the marketing based coaching sessions, but I give a lot of good intel. All of those get fully recorded and dropped into that free Facebook community, and you can ask questions, and it's a starting point. And so there's no excuses. Even if $10 a month is scary for you, then start there, get some help, embrace this new idea, and let's make 2024 a new you.
That's awesome, man. And you are on TikTok, right?
Yeah.
What's your
Solutions is, you'll find us that way.
Okay.
We're on all social media.
Sure. All social media, guys. So if you want to check him out and follow him, make sure you do. So thankful for having you today, doctor, and all your time that you put into this. Really appreciate it. And if you are listening today, or if you are watching this later, make sure you check out the information below in the description, because this may be life-changing for many of you guys. Just take into consideration what was talked today about the future. Maybe you have not looked into the future as far as what happens if they do take me off this GLP-1. Then what? What is the answer after that? A lot of you guys have nowhere else to go. So this is another avenue, the main avenue you probably should be going down. Well, not probably, you should be going down as far as holistically, naturally allowing your body to heal and cure itself. So thanks so much again, buddy, for having me on your show. Thank you so much, brother, for coming on my show. And I just, again, I appreciate your time, and make sure you guys check him out. We'll leave his website below, and obviously you have his information there, and we'll drop his phone number below. So guys, have a happy Thanksgiving. I'm kidding. I did that because I keep screwing up today.
Yeah,
have a happy Thanksgiving next year. Make sure you don't eat that much, but have a happy
New Year's.
Too many holidays coming on. You know, we had Christmas, New Year's. It's almost like, you know, I should be saying happy Thanksgiving for how fast time's flying.
I know, man.
So,
we got New Year's, and then we got the New Year, man.
And then we got Valentine's Day.
And we got
so you got to be ready for Valentine's Day, guys. Get on this train and get healthy. So anyways, guys, with that said, I'm going to let you guys go. Thank you so much. We'll catch you on the next one.
All right. Thanks for having me.